All right, so we're back here with the content that nobody asked for, and I'm not sure anybody wants, but here we are. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to talk about a precursor to a video that's coming next. And what I want to talk to you today about is things that one page rules do not do as well, either as Warhammer or as Age of Sigmar or as Mantic or as other companies where their glaring weaknesses are. And we're going to use that as a lead into our next set of videos where we're going to talk about the advanced rules and how the advanced rules fix some of these problems. Now, I know, criticism of something we like, but we're all mature adults here. I know, hear me out. So, I think the biggest legitimate complaint about one page is if you've never seen the advanced rules, then the game, and this is a fair criticism, seems overly simplified so that once you get used to and have a mastery of concepts, there's not much there that creates a unique and engaging story with each game. It becomes a matter of finding the best units that you have and the largest numbers that you can do, and then spamming the same tactics to win over and over. And yes, they have cards. They have mission cards. And you should absolutely be using mission cards. It is the better way to play once you have the rules down. And it's an interesting kind of gimmick. Yes, the Warhammer does a very similar thing with their secondary objective decks, but this makes the objective decks kind of the main thing, and this helps this problem a lot, but it doesn't fix it. I can hear the complaints coming, but just bear with me. The reality is that the game is really simple from the beginner book, and yes, that is by design. It's designed to help people get into it and be able to play it for free. But it is, admittedly, a little misleading when it says that the game is free, because it is free with an asterisk. If you join their Patreon, you'll get all of the books for $10 for 1 month. You can quit right after you download them all. They won't get updated. You'll have to get them again when they get updated, but they don't seem to do that too often. And the advanced rules are so fundamentally important that it really is something that we should be talking about, how much there is not included in the core book, because there's some stuff in here that really should be. Like, I understand what they're doing, and honestly, I don't blame them. I still think it's a great way to do this. I think it's a great business model for it. But having a singular deployment style and a singular objective game is very difficult, because it becomes very repetitious very quickly. And the solution is to spend money, which is the antithesis of what this company was saying that they're not. And it's reasonable. It's all reasonable. But if we're going to talk about it, we need to talk about it openly. We need to talk about it honestly. And that is one of their biggest problems. One of their next biggest problems is, and this is the nature of the beast, so again, we're acknowledging problems. I'm not saying that I blame them or I think they're doing it wrong. There is not much at all established lore for any of this stuff. I participated in a writing jam recently, and that was the first time it really came to the forefront of my attention just how little there is that is clearly defined about this entire universe. And I get it, and I don't think that it's a bad way to do it, because it leaves us all room to do it. But we do kind of run into some issues when I see orcs very similar to the Games Workshop orcs, with the funny voices and they're not dumb, but they're not super bright either, but they get smarter as they get bigger. Those orcs are my heart and soul. I absolutely adore them. But the orcs here don't really have a clear role they play as far as how they interact with the world. It very much feels like we have orcs from fantasy who are just in space. And I think that, especially with orcs, that does an incredible disservice to the wonderful flavor of these green boys. I can get behind not making them plants. I can, although I think that is absolutely one of the best things about Games Workshop's orcs. I can get behind not doing it, because then You are very, very on the nose taking from Games Workshop. Fine, whatever. We can dump that aspect, but there's nothing that says you can't have fun orc boys who talk funny and have hilarious outviews on everything. Another problem that is by design is the fluidity of the model range. The stuff that has supports from one page have a very distinct look to them, and again by design, but it is a very specific look that they have decided to go for. I'm going to specifically talk about the December and November undead for this because the one page rule guy has said they have a very specific look that they want for their vampires and their undead, and they want to make them truly their own, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. And it's it's model agnostic, so you don't have to use their stuff. But if you want to use stuff that is supported without having to dig out a bunch of stuff, it really becomes but you should. And not even because it's like they've designed it that way. It's just, it's easier to use the stuff that they're making because they're making the stuff with the rules in mind and vice versa. And that creates a very interesting position. And it's not a terrible problem to have because it's just it's only, the company is only so big, they can only put out so much stuff, and they've only been doing this for so long, but it is something we need to acknowledge. We can't pretend that it's not there. We also have to acknowledge that, and again, this is the size of the company, and I'm not trying to shit on them about this, but it is a thing we need to acknowledge, that some of their best ideas are the furthest down the pipeline. I watched the sit and chat that they did not for December, the one for November. And the guy that does it, who, forgive me, I don't know his name off the top of my head, who is fantastic and was very open and very honest with the audience with it, which is what you really want to see, was the first one to say that, the best and most interesting stuff is the stuff that's the furthest down the line, which makes it the hardest stuff to get to. And that's not bad. It's just, it is. And it's something we need to just make sure that we're not pretending like isn't there. This game also seems to have a very large emphasis on not elite armies. People who played Warhammer to play Grey Knights or Custodes, people who liked having armies that were hyper elite and very good at a specific thing, are having a little bit of a shell shock moving to this. The most interesting example I've seen recently was one of the gentlemen on YouTube put out a battle report that pitted Grey Knights or whatever their counterpart, Knight Brothers, against Orcs. And the Orcs had, if it wasn't 10, it was close to 10 units for a firefight game, and the Grey Knight player had 5, maybe 4, and he got eaten, and I mean eaten. It was so bad they actually filmed 2 different reports for the single episode because it was done so quickly, which is kind of hilarious, but it's vindictive of a larger problem that if that's not your style, if your style isn't having a fair amount of models for your army, if you really want that hyper focused elite army, this system isn't great for that as far as I can tell. Now you could get into the community made lists, which are both a huge asset and a tremendous detriment to this system, and I think at some point we're going to have a conversation about that as well, because while it is solid, it is not without problem. Having the tools to make the list that the developers are using available is fantastic, except that it's paywalled. And then, I haven't tried this yet, but if you make an army and you put all that effort into it and you put it out and then you don't have the subscription anymore, your army sits in limbo. So even if you have like a really popular patron and you're making custom units for this army like Papsicle or in his Predator army, the Skull Hunters, if you decide to stop supporting patrons one page because you don't like the models or you don't have the extra money for it that month, you can't update your army. And I mean that's a thing. That's a thing. All right, we're out of time for this, so we'll see if we do it part 2. Otherwise, we'll catch you when we take a look at the advanced rules and see how many of these problems can get fixed. Thank you, and we're out.